Ever downloaded a PowerShell script and wondered if it was safe to run? Well, what if I told you that AI could be your personal AI script translator? It can help you understand what every line does and even if it works properly or not. Hello world, Mike is learning PowerShell. Thanks for joining me. So today we're diving into something really exciting. How to use AI as your PowerShell learning assistant. We'll be giving the same prompt to 3 different LLMs. We'll be using Claude AI, ChatGPT, and the new DeepSeek R1. We'll show how each of these LLMs respond to the prompts that we give them. Now the prompt that I use is pretty in-depth. You may not want to use the entire thing. I have it on my GitHub page, so feel free to just go to my page and download it, take out of it what you want, and hopefully it's of some value to you. So before we get started, let's go ahead and do the same thing that we always do. We are going to do a start transcript here, and hit F8. All right, transcript started, and it's saved at MILP. Mike is learning PowerShell. Transcripts, AI Learning Session 1. Yep, there is going to be a part 2. In part 2, we'll talk about how to use AI to help you write scripts. So why do we want to use AI for PowerShell? Let's take a possible real-world scenario, and let's look at this script right here. I'll also throw it up on the screen so we can see it better, but that is just a bunch of junk right there. It works. I know it works. I've run it before, and yeah, it's fine. But we see a bad variable. It's just an R for a variable. We're using some aliases. We're using, okay, we got a semicolon there just to keep everything on one line. This is actually all one line. I can even show you here. I can get rid of that. And, oh boy, we can get rid of that. Oh, there we go. All right. That is all on one line. And even on one line, it all works just fine. So let's go ahead and just put that back there so we can see everything on one screen. So what do we think it does? Now, if someone had just given this to me, I can look at it and say, all right, I see a few things that kind of make sense. I see PS, so I know what PS is. I see sort, that's the alias for sort object. So it's going to be sorting by CPU. So basically I can tell that, okay, we're doing a get process here, and we're going to be sorting it somehow. We got a CSV file here, so I guess this means that we're going to be exporting it as a CSV file. All right. If you're a beginner in PowerShell, you might be looking at this saying, that's just a big old bunch of numbers and letters, and that's fine. The whole idea behind what we're doing today is to get AI to help us figure out what is going on with scripts like this. First, we're going to go into Claude AI. Let me bring up Claude here. Now, for Claude, I do have the Pro subscription, so I'm not sure if you can do this in the free version or not, but I have projects, and one of my projects is a script code analyzer. And the project knowledge right here, code analysis. This is this is a prompt, basically, and you could just copy and paste this, and like I said, it's in my GitHub, so you can grab this, but it tells us a lot about whatever script we give it. So just by being here, I can go back to this and copy this. Copy. Go back to Claude. And I am just, because I've already added this as project knowledge, I don't have to do anything. I can just give it some code. All right. And then we'll make it run. So it's thinking. So it's going to analyze this PowerShell script and make it more educational, following the framework from the code analysis document while incorporating your teaching style with PowerShell. So Claude knows that I do a YouTube channel to teach PowerShell, and it also knows how I want my scripts analyzed when I give it. So I got a whole bunch of information over here. Okay, at first it gives us a metaphor. It's like a system resource detective. It looks at all running processes, finds the hungry ones using more than 10% CPU, and creates a neat report about them. Think of it as a restaurant manager checking which tables are taking up the most server time and space. So the way I've kind of trained Claude to work with me is to use metaphors. I've told it to give me a lot of metaphors, and I'll just kind of pick and choose which ones I want, because sometimes it gets kind of. So it shows us our original code. Let's look at that again, and I'll pop it up on the screen. Okay, and what does it give us? This is the enhanced version with educational comments. So it actually gives me quite a long readout here. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to bring that back into ISE. Where are we here? ISE. And let's go to Claude, analyzed by Claude. Give us a couple spaces here. All right, so it's a little easier to read here. Let's actually scroll up a little bit. Again, I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to scroll up on my mouse so we can see a little bit better. All right, analyzed by Claude. So first thing it does, it creates an array. Okay. Like it says, it's like setting up an empty basket to collect items. An array is basically a variable, but you can store more than one value in that array. So that's what we have here. So instead of a $sign like they have, an array is going to have that @ symbol and then some parentheses. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take all those processes, put them in the array. So for each one that it finds, it's going to create another entry in that array. And then it's going to, let's see, I'm going to get process. Then for each object, it's going to look for more than 10% CPU. So again, we're talking about the pipeline variable. And again, we talked about that in a previous video. What that does is it takes whatever object is currently in the pipeline. So in this case, we are doing get process, and let's just run get process real quick here. Get process. And so each of these lines is a separate object, is a separate entry in our array. It's an object too, but so we have all these. So for the first time it goes through, it's going to say, okay, I got this one, Adobe notifications, CL, whatever. And so for the first iteration, the pipeline variable is this one. And the Adobe variable is not reading any CPU usage, so it's not going to be included. First one we see down here that does have it included is something from my Alienware computer. That is not over 10, so it's going to skip that. So it's going to go through each one of these, and each time, that's where that pipeline variable comes in. So when we scroll down here, we see this AMDRS service is 35. We have this one is 123, 35, 48, 73. What do we got? 35, 24, 70, 82, 26. We're going to create our own custom object. All right. And it's going to, inside that custom object is name, CPU, and memory. Now, custom objects are kind of down the road for us. We're not going to be really talking about too much today. Basically, what we're doing is we're just creating, like it says here, we're creating an object with the properties that we want. So when we want to return some information, we just call on that object that we've created, and it will give us name, CPU, and memory. And we're going to sort object by CPU descending, and then we're going to export it as a CSV to highest resource processes.csv. All right, so we're going to run this process, make sure we don't have anything up there. All right. Okay, so something does exist now. Highest resource processes. So that's the file that it created for us. All right. So let's just do hi. So I typed in hi, I hit the tab key, tab completion. It's your friend. Use tab completion. All right. Hit enter, and on my other screen here, Excel pops up. Let's do this. All right, so we do have, let's make that bigger again. We do have a CSV file, which is basically an Excel file, showing what all of our CPU over 10 processes are. Let's go ahead and delete. I'm going to do del and then H and just do an H and tab, and look at there. It's the only thing with H, so it finds it right away. So we have now deleted that file. All right. Okay, let me put the code up on the screen here so we can see everything. So R, $R, that is the main variable. It saw R and it knows that when you're scripting, whether it's in PowerShell or any other language, you should be using a descriptive name for your variables, not just a letter. Okay, so it gave it a resource report, and we can see that that's in camel case. All right, so it goes down here and it sees PS, expanded that out to get process. This percentage sign here is actually an alias for each object. So it expanded percentage out to for each object. And then it did the CPU check. Oops. And let's go down here. It gives us the custom object. And then it says the final steps are to sort object by CPU descending, and then to export it as a CSV. All right. So learning opportunities. We're demonstrating the pipeline here. We're collecting them, we sort them, and we export them to a file. Those are the three things in the pipeline that we're doing. Memory is stored in bytes, but displayed in megabytes. That's why we divided by 1 megabyte in the final script here. Actually, in both scripts, but it's telling us that's what it's doing. The node type information keeps our CSV clean by removing extra PowerShell specific information. So it's only giving us the data that we're asking for. Some common mistakes. Be careful with file paths so you know where you're going. Also, if you run this multiple times, if you don't delete the file, you will get an error because we're not putting in any try catch or any kind of error correcting in this specific script. So if that file already exists, you may get an error. All right. And that's one of the things it tells us. It can add error handling for file writing. It can include process start time, add process's owner information. So it's telling us all the things we can do. Our GitHub page here. So if you want to get my prompt, it's right here. So just find Michael Lapointe, MILP, and it's going to be coding with AI part 1, using AI to help analyze scripts. All right. So let me just copy all this. Now, if you have a free version of any of these LLMs, the longer your prompt is, the more tokens you're going to use up more quickly. So you may not want to use this entire thing. If you're just going to use it to analyze 4 or 5 scripts pretty quick, and then you're not going to keep using it, you're not going to run out of tokens that quick. They refresh pretty often. So, but feel free to chop this down as much as you want and just use what you want out of it. So I am going to give this to DeepSeek here. Where's DeepSeek? There we go. So I'm just going to paste that, and before I hit enter, I am going to shift enter to give me some space here, and then I am going to go back and grab our code and go back to DeepSeek and give it the code. Paste as plain text. Okay, that's the same code we were looking at before. Let's see what DeepSeek does for us. Now it's got the exact same prompt that we gave to Claude AI. It's just a little different because in Claude it was part of the project. In DeepSeek here, it's actually part of the prompt. DeepSeek will probably have a projects function sometime down the road because ChatGPT and Claude both have it. I'm not sure about DeepSeek yet. It might even be here and I didn't even see it, but we won't worry about that right now. So what did DeepSeek give us? Okay, that's our prompt. And let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so it gives us the purpose, requirements. So let's just give all this back to ISE. Okay, we are in DeepSeek now, so we're going to give it the starting comments. And we're going to go back to this, and we're going to get the that. We have all the code in ISE now. So This time it gave us akin to a doctor identifying which patients are running a high fever and need immediate attention. Okay, so it does the same thing here, but it does not look. Okay, so it did not really expand out the code as much as Claude did. It does everything. It did not expand out our aliases here, so the aliases still exist. This bad variable still exists. That's fine. Not as great as I would have hoped. So let's just do this again to make sure that it does work. HCSV. All right, let's see if it works. There we go. So same thing. I wouldn't expect it to be too different. So we're going to del H again. So now we can go to ChatGPT. Okay, so we're in ChatGPT now, and I am in my script analysis project. Has the same prompt that I gave for the last two, so now I can just go ahead and put code in there again and run it. Okay, here's a refactored version of your PowerShell script with improved readability, expanded aliases, and educational comments to make it easier for beginners to understand. All right, let's go ahead and read through this, see what it gave us. So we can see here it did give us the full commandlets instead of the aliases. Gave us different lines here. And it did change the R to process list, which is good. Let's go ahead and just copy everything, bring it back to ISE, and paste it in. So it doesn't do much here to explain what the script does, but it does say, okay, we expanded all this out, gave all this here, script functionality explanation, so additional considerations. So again, pretty good. I think out of the three, I do like Claude AI the best, just for what I want out of it. You may want a shorter version of your response, and then this would be perfectly fine because it still does pretty much what we asked for, and it tells us, yeah, it tells us what we want. I just think Claude just gives us so much more. So for me, I prefer Claude. So let's talk about safety in using these LLMs. Okay, DeepSeek. It's pretty new. It made a mess of things for a while there. I know my stock portfolio, my 401k, kind of took a big hit for a little while, and it's recovered. But when DeepSeek was first announced, it figuratively shook the world. I cannot speak to what it's doing in the background, if it is safe to run or not, as far as what it's doing to your computer. I don't think it's, when you're just asking it questions like this, I don't see a problem with it. Now, what it gives you back, this is why it's going to be a long time before these chatbots take over programming or scripting, because they can make mistakes. This is a pretty simple one, even though the code looked a little weird to start with. It was a pretty simple one. It did this one without too much trouble. But if you start actually throwing in some pretty complicated scripts in there, there's possibilities it could make mistakes. I mean, even if you look at the bottom here, ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. I'm sure Claude has something similar. Claude can make mistakes. Please double check responses. And if we go to DeepSeek, AI generated for reference only. So they're even telling you themselves, hey, this is probably right, but don't take my word for it. Check for yourself. So what do we want to do? Anything that we get, if we want to be sure, check it against Microsoft documentation. I'll put a link below for the actual documentation for PowerShell. And of course, you can even use GitHub. We've talked about GitHub before. Use that. But always double check what ChatGPT or whatever is going to give you. If you are working on scripts that could potentially do some damage, I would suggest using this in a sandboxed environment. If you have a test box that's not connected to the rest of your network, that would be great too. If you have a really big script with a lot of lines and it's going to be a bit much to give to AI, break it down into smaller chunks. Find a natural break somewhere in the code if you can understand where a natural break is, and just give it that much to work on at a time. The smaller chunks you can give to AI to analyze, the better you're going to be. Okay, so today we learned how to use AI to analyze our scripts for us. Why don't you go ahead and try this at home when the video's over? So take a simple script that you use regularly or find one online that looks like it's a relatively simple script. Bring it into whichever one you want. Try DeepSeek. Use DeepSeek for analyzing your scripts. Use ChatGPT for analyzing your scripts. Use Claude AI for analyzing your scripts. Ask your AI to explain it line by line. If you're doing it for PowerShell, make sure you ask it to expand from alias to commandlets. Compare its results to the help files or to Microsoft documentation. And you can even practice writing your own comments into that script yourself. I am a really big advocate for adding a lot of comments to scripts. Maybe too much. Again, next week I'll be doing a video on using AI to help you write scripts. So until then, keep scripting and stay curious. See you later.